Well, thank you guys for having me here today. I can tell you that never in a million years did I think I would stand before you and say that I'm running for governor in the state of Indiana. I'm not a person that is interested in being involved in politics in the United States. Both of my family members, my father and my mother, were both servants of the United States military. They served in the Navy. My dad retired as a lieutenant commander. He was a chaplain. My mother then, after they got divorced, went into the military. She got her master's in divinity, and she also served for 10 years. So we are a family of service. So being in politics, forgive me for saying, never looked like it lined up. About 6 years ago, we moved to Indiana. My husband is a mechanical engineer. He's a PE. We have 5 children now. At the time we had 4. I have a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, almost 10, 8-year-old, and I also have a 3-year-old. I'll go one more. 4 of them are boys. I know, I just wanted to say that because it matters. I love being a mom. I wouldn't trade it for anything, ever. When I was 26 years old, in my 20s, I graduated from what is now Missouri State University. My degree is in psychology, my minor is in communications, left there, went back home, ended up being a compliance manager for the second largest mortgage broker in the state of California. We had 1,500 loan officers. I was 26 years old, no experience. It was just what I call a Joseph move. So if you know your Bible, you know what that means. When the Lord just Josephs people, puts them in positions that they really don't understand why they're there, but they're there to represent him. He gives them the wisdom. And so I've been in those positions. And as I was there in business during my 20s, I did the opposite. I went to the top of the company and I kept trying to work my way out of corporate America. Because I love people. I'm also a worship leader. I've been a worship leader for 20 years. I love Jesus. I'm not afraid to say it. I take my Bible with me because I want people to understand that that is the freedom that we have in this country. Certainly not because I believe that every person will be a Christian. I want to make that super clear because there's a bit of a rumor going on that our nation is going to be a nation that should be one religion. And I don't believe that, because if you're a Christian, you know that salvation is a gift. The beauty of America is that we have the freedom to choose. So I carry my Bible with me just so we understand the standard, because it seems to have changed as of late. As if those that are Christians and know Jesus cannot speak his name. I simply say, if Hollywood can say it in a movie, I can say it anywhere else. Isn't that amazing how in Hollywood they don't take any other religion's name? When was the last time someone stubbed their toe and said, "Oh, Buddha"? This never happened. I happen to believe the reason for that is because there's power in the name of Jesus Christ. My husband and I, my husband is from Michigan, so I'm from, that's a funny question since my parents are military, so all over, born in Missouri. But my husband's from Michigan. He spent all of his time there. He has 5 siblings. There are 21 grandkids on his side, and so a little over 6 years ago, the Lord called us out of Michigan to Indiana. Quite literally, we were in this wonderful session with our pastor. We started talking about it. The Lord just confirmed it. We prayed it through. And so we left all of our family and we came to Indiana and knew no one. When we got here, we bought a brand new home. 2 weeks into buying that brand new home, the sewer backed up. It's always fun. And after the sewer backed up, I guess you could say it was kind of like a domino effect. Everything else just kind of fell apart. The contractors were at our house so much that they kind of began to build a relationship with our family. And they told us, there's something going on, you should get a lawyer. No offense to any lawyers in here. Certainly no offense to the judge. But lawyers are expensive. And I said, I'm gonna need a better reason than just go get a lawyer. We found out that there was something wrong with our home. It took a lot of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, to get that information out. Finally, I found a covenant that was between the city and the builder, giving the builder permission to build our home to a lower elevation, making it susceptible to sewer backup. Funny thing about it was it wasn't filed and recorded onto our title until after we brought it up. And so where I come from, that sounds like fraud. So I've represented my family in court now for 3 years. I'm not an attorney. I use the privilege that we have in this country to be pro se. So my husband and I represent pro se, which means that I had to learn the system. I had to learn how to write complaints, motions, and guess what? You also write the orders. I did not know that. Surprise. So you write the orders and then the judge looks at your order and then they stamp the order. So they can weigh in, of course, but a lot of times they don't, maybe.
It depends.
It depends. You got a good judge. So I've been in court for 3 years now. When I was going through this situation 6 years ago, I was in downtown Indianapolis when I heard a whisper over my ear. It was very simple. It said, "You're going to be the governor of the state of Indiana." I've said that all over the state. I've traveled 13,000 miles in the last 2 years, and I have no problem saying it because I wouldn't be here unless that was said. I'm just not interested in running for any office in the United States if I'm not here because the Lord called me to be here. How do I know that he called me? Well, he whispered that into my ear, and I said, well, that's crazy. And I put that on the shelf. Actually, I just want to rephrase. I did not actually say that's crazy. I would not speak like that to the Lord, but it felt crazy. I put that on the shelf, and 5 years later, after COVID, which, wow, what an experience COVID was. Let's take a quick commercial break and talk about COVID. And the mother of 5, I was shocked at how quickly conservative people were willing to touch freedom in this country. Shocked. I mean, and I have to say that I think part of that has to be our responsibility because we are people that put these people into office and we are not asking the questions that need to be asked. We are settling for stump speeches when the reality is that it's their belief system that are making the decisions that affect your families, which is another reason why I carry my Bible, because I want you to know where my decisions come from. You don't have to believe in it. I certainly encourage you to read it. I say that everywhere I go. But how do you make a decision whenever things are very terrible in the nation? I go to the Word of God. What is the best position for a leader in this nation right now? On their knees in prayer. If you don't know that, I would say you're probably naive. There's a real evil out there. It's very real. I appreciate that we had representation here for President Trump. I would have said this with Carlin here. I've actually met Carlin before and talked to the Indiana State Police. You know what I think is interesting about the president? Look at his shoulders now and compare that to 5 years ago. You communicate a lot right here. He has a different posture now. Then we would be wise to pay attention to that. The reason is because there is a time when people have to stand, and we have reached that time in this country, where politicians can no longer be in office because the good old boys club just isn't going to cut it. It's not protecting our families. And so I got that calling in the midst of all of the COVID. I did probably what you did during COVID. I went and started researching for myself, called every doctor I knew. I have family members in the medical industry, right? We're all online. We're trying to verse ourselves in all of the medical terminology, all of the definitions, because I certainly don't want Fauci describing for me what's going to be happening. So as I went through that, I immediately came to the conclusion after looking at the CDC numbers, which changed, interestingly enough. Everything was great, and they were doing the numbers for COVID, and then overnight it went from COVID to COVID, pneumonia, flu, and they weren't said in such a way that was easy to follow. You had to take all the numbers apart to figure out everything. It was radical. And I told my husband, you know what, we're done. Because in the Bible it says in the book of James that in the Father of lights there's no shadow of turning. If you're a Christian, you should know that you have the greatest asset you could ever have. First of all, you have the Lord. I mean, that's the end of the story right there. I should say the beginning, right? But you have wisdom. You have the ability to see where there's a shadow. That's what I ask you about the people you vote for. Let's have a simple conversation. Do you see a shadow? Because we have to stop doing that. We have to stop ignoring when we hear someone speak and we notice that there's a shadow. Oh, that'll go by. No, that shadow is going to make a decision. And that decision is going to impact your family. And so after I went through that time of COVID came out, we were good, and then we had a family member. Just so you know, I'm not saying that COVID wasn't dangerous, because it was. I had 2 family members that are not with us anymore. And we had someone else that got sick, and I told my husband, if you want me to surrender the calling and go take care of your family, like, I'm on board. I didn't make the calling. And so I was ready to go. We even knocked on some doors in Michigan. All of them closed. We're still in court, because sometimes court can be a little long. We're going on 3 years in court. We had to go to the appeals court. The appeals court ruled in our favor. I just filed a motion to correct error, because we'll probably head there again. I hope. And so after that time in COVID, when COVID ended and we couldn't move to Michigan, we prayed and said, okay, we're going to just surrender. We're going to put our roots in Indiana, and this is where we're going to stay. We're never going to move. This is where you've called us, Lord. In that moment, that calling came off the shelf, and it just rested on my heart. I describe it as like a heater on a cold winter day when you go outside and it's just hot all over you, and you constant thinking about every single thing you can think about. I've never thought about politics like this, but I'm telling you, I could separate all of it just like that. The politicians, the party, who's running, why they're running, and then most importantly, what do the people need? What makes me different than any other candidate in the state of Indiana, is I can tell you something that they probably can't tell you. I can tell you that I love the state of Indiana. If you're a Christian, you know what that word means. It's called agape. It's a love that's patient and kind, doesn't envy, doesn't boast. Because see, I'm here on this night and I'm not at my son's basketball game. No, I'm here with you. My 3-year-old is home. Because when the Lord calls you, you say yes. Because he's worth the sacrifice. And with that yes came a love for the people of Indiana. I can't describe it, but it's very easy for me to look around the entire room. Doesn't matter if you love me or hate me. Totally doesn't matter to me. I still have the ability to look at every single person and know that I agape. I said agape once to a group that was a gal that came up to me. She was from the LGBTQ community. We were at a Republican booth at a fair. And she walked up to me and she saw my Bible, which I take with me, and she said, "So you're a Christian?" And I said, "I am." And she said, "Oh, well, I'd like to hear what you have to say about the LGBTQ community." Her mother was there with her, and I asked her, does that question mean something to you? And she said, "It does. This woman right beside me is going to be my wife in 3 months." I said, "Okay." I said, "Do you know what the word agape means?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, it's the word that they use in the Bible for love. It's a Greek word for love." And she said, "Oh, I'm not a Christian. I don't do that." I said, "That's okay. I'm still going to explain it to you." It says, love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it doesn't keep a record of wrongs. And so you ask me what I feel about the LGBTQ, and I tell you this, I agape you. And then her mom said, "Oh, you must be one of those Christian women, one of those good women that believes that you can marry anyone that you want to marry." And just so you know, as you listen to me right now, I talk like this all the time. These are real conversations. They're conversations that people don't want to have, but they need to be had. Because our country is in a moral crisis. And we should stop ignoring it because it's not helping. And so she asked me, "Are you one of those good Christian women?" I said, "I don't know about good. I'm a Christian woman." And let me be really clear about love in the Bible. It also says this, that love does not keep a record of wrong, but it also does not rejoice in iniquity. It rejoices in the truth. And I said, so I can look into your face and I can tell you that I agape you. And I can also look in your face and tell you I disagree with that marriage. I don't believe the Lord created you for that. And both of those statements can be true. You think that she threw something at me? Think she stomped off? No. You want to know why? Because the people that support her don't love her. That's why. God tells the truth. And so after that time period, right, I was called in, and then 6 years later, I was in Panera, and as I'm sitting there in Panera with my prayer team lead, this beautiful black woman came up, furry hair, and she walked over to us, she asked what we were doing, then she looked at me and she said, "What does the Lord have to say to you?" And I know, see, you're looking at me like I looked at her, I was like, what? She said, "What does the Lord have to say to you?" And I want to tell you, I wish I could tell you. Then I said, "What does he have to say?" But I didn't say that. Because just like you guys, I'm checking people out, and you should check me out. I've traveled 13,000 miles. I've told this story so many times. I don't care, check it out. You should, please do that. But as I'm standing there, she said to me, she said, "The Lord has given you a love, and it is a love for more than just your family. It is a love for the people, and you must follow that love." The next week, I was at the same Panera, had the same witness, which is, by the way, also why my team travels with me, because witnesses are important. And so I'm there at Panera, and this older black gentleman comes in, and he kind of says over the wall, "God bless you." And I looked at my friend, and I said, "Is this going to happen again?" And she said, "Just say, 'Jesus is Lord.'" I'm like, okay. I mean, you guys, this really happened. And so he comes up, and he walks around the corner, and he walks up to her, does not say anything to me, walks right up to her, had a little paper sack, it was not a Panera sack, walked right up to her, and he said, "God bless you." And she said, "God bless you, Jesus is Lord." And he said, "He is the Lord. He's the everlasting to everlasting." And then he said, "Do you know the Lord?" And she said, "I do." He said, "Do you love the Lord?" And she said, "With all that I am." And for the first time, he turned and he looked at me. And he said, "The people do not know how much the Father loves them. He gave his Son." And then he said to me, "You have a calling on your life. It's a calling for your future. And you need to let your past go. And you need to walk in that calling. And you need to allow the Lord to renew your mind, that you might approve what the pure and acceptable will of God is." And he walked right out of Panera. Now this is what I tell everybody. If that happens to you every day, awesome. Great. That doesn't happen to me every day. As a leader in the Bible, it tells us that we lead diligently. You want to know why the nation is the way that it is today? Because it's not being ran diligently. Leaders that lead diligently lead with vision. The Bible says without vision, the people perish. When the righteous govern, the people rejoice. When the wicked govern, they what? They groan. And so here we are, right? And I'm asking the Lord, well, what is the vision for the state of Indiana? And you know what book of the Bible he takes me to? He takes me to the book of the Bible. It's the book of Nehemiah. And he gives me the vision for the church to rebuild, revive, and rejoice. And as I looked at Nehemiah, do you know what was shocking? As I'm studying this book and I'm watching this leader, do you know what he did? He was a cupbearer. People ask me all the time, what are your qualifications? I want to make something very clear. The United States of America, the qualifications are written in the Constitution. When you're in government, you're not there because you're a fancy lawyer or some great politician. You are there because you were meant to serve the people of the United States of America. Amen. And our freedom is best held in the hands of the people. So if you put a governor in office that likes power, good luck with that. Good luck. Because this is the day and age where the heart is revealed. And those that crave power are more than willing to take it from the people. I am the exact opposite. I fully understand our country is the safest in the hands of the people. And so let's talk policy. I make my first emphasis education. Why? Well, because that's where they're trying to aim right now. The most vulnerable are our children. And so we have to tighten up that gate. I made the plans very simple. You have to provide vision. And so we say that we will be the first state in the state of Indiana to require that every senior that graduates in our state completes an apprenticeship. Every senior. I talked to some people at the State House about that. They said, well, you know, that's a really great idea. I think that's going to take you like 10 years. I'm like, no, I'm a mom. We're going to get this done in 4 years. We're going to start with those people that are getting money from the state. We'll just have them arranged to have their apprenticeship submitted within 6 months, because if you're using taxpayer money, you should probably be a part of the solution. By the way, if you've looked at our education scores lately, you might know how terrible they are. And I learned they lowered the passing rate to 35%. The passing rate. Yeah. Then we have areas in our state with even the passing rate being 35%. Do you know how many people pass in some of these counties? 12% of students. The average is like 35%. You guys should look it up. I know you're those kind of people that look things up. You should. My head of education is a Mom for Liberty. She's the Mom for Liberty over Hamilton County. 30 years experience in education, master's in administration. Her vision for this state is that dry bones will dance again. She left retirement to serve because she believes in the people. My choice for lieutenant governor, he served in the Army. He flew Blackhawks and also helped set up foreign governments. So if you think that I'm just here because I think I can walk in, I'm not like that. I'm here because I know I can win. You can say it's David and Goliath. That's fine. Someone actually said that to me one time, by the way. They said, man, do you really realize what this is? I mean, you're like David, and this is like Goliath. And I was like, yeah, have you read the story lately? Did you see how that ended? We know how to win because we are all about a ground game, and we know how to work the ground game. I'm not going to tell you how to work the ground game because though I really appreciate it, there's other candidates that are here, and, you know, but we love it. We love what we do. We emphasize in education, and then very quickly, we go from education to looking at things like energy, economy. Our small towns are dying. I've spent a lot of time in those small towns. Right now we're on a small town tour, a farmer's tour. I've talked to the farmers, actually got to go in a combine. It was one of the ones that are 16 rows. That's fantastic. You want to get an experience like you'll never have before, sit in a combine with a farmer and listen to him talk about how much he loves the country as he goes up and down the aisles. It's amazing. It's a beautiful state, and you're beautiful people. So I'm happy to answer your questions, and I sure can dig into policy. You can go to our website. We've got photos and we've got things that we can pass out to you. Love to have you sign. It's interesting that they're low in District 4. We just reached 1,000 signatures in District 4.
1,039.
So we're happy to report that to you today. We've got over 500 signatures in almost 8 counties. And then in about 4 of those, we're headed to 700 to 800. Our goal is actually to double it to get to 1,000 in every county, every congressional district. So that's why we haven't announced that we've gotten it yet. Yes, I've got a question.
Lieutenant Governor choice.
Yes, his name is Craig Blow. And you can see Craig on our Facebook page. Him and his wife Kimchi, wonderful couple. If you want to know how I lead by getting people that are qualifying to do every single thing that's needed for the state, which means that you have to surround yourself with people that are very specific in what they do. That's why my head of education has served 30 years and come out of retirement.
Who's that?
Yes, sir.
And who is that?
Oh, her name is Paige Miller. Absolutely.
Have you met with Mike Beckwith at all?
I sure have. Mike is great. I actually, for the first time in this calling, so I told you I'm a worship leader. So I can really dig deep into theology, all that kind of stuff. I really love it. I love the word, you guys. I love the word. But it's the first time in my life where I actually have, I guess you could call it taught or preached before in front of a congregation, and I've preached at Mike's congregation before. It was a wonderful time. So Mike and I are good friends, and we actually have made sure that Mike and Craig have met just to make sure that all of that is figured out. We think that the Lord is doing something special there, and so we'll see what happens. Any other questions? Wow.
I have a question.
Sure, Rick.
With the direction that Indiana's taken with the economic development and creating funds to, with the state directing funds in economic development that bypasses the typical process of being able to create development, there's always opportunities, especially when talking about the LEAP project in the county of West Lafayette. What would your approach be to, as governor, to the Indiana economic development funds and how that's being utilized by our legislature now?
So I find us in the country in an interesting position because we are realizing more and more how big government is. And so when I travel and people ask me for solutions and how we are going to do this program or that program or how much money we're going to spend putting here or there, I always say that I don't think the same way other people think, because the more money that I say the government is going to give out, the more I truly believe we're feeding into a slow walk of socialism. And so that's a hard position, because you don't want to come into the state and say, we're not going to put money anywhere, because that doesn't make sense. You also don't want to come into the state and say, we're going to cut all the federal dollars. People that are saying that, it's a good idea, right? But you don't know where all those federal dollars are going. You should try to look at the budget of state. And I'm talking about line items. It's hard to find. It's hard to get. And so I can't just stand up and say, yeah, we're going to say no to all the federal dollars, because we don't even know where all of those programs are and how many people they're affecting. When it comes to the economy, from my perspective, I look at how we can bring education and the students of the next generation in to help the workforce, right? So for small businesses, when I say we're doing apprenticeships their senior year, small businesses can submit their apprenticeships and those seniors can go and work for them, and that's going to help them because they don't have to pay for that employment. When I look at how to help small towns, I've got some great plans for that, but can I save it and just wait? Because we're trying to roll it out just right, and I want to just save that little bit. But I encourage you to watch how we work. We don't work with hundreds of millions of dollars coming from the government. We're more creative than that. We look for ways to involve the private sector. I talk to investors. People don't think that I have the connections. Well, you should read the word. When he calls you, he equips you. We have people that are way up there. Some of them have even worked with the vice president before on his campaign. They do their part, everybody plays their role. And so we encourage you, if you have a desire to get involved, if you're stirred up and you want to have a role in it, please talk to our team. People come, they all offer all of the gifts that they have. It's awesome, it's amazing. But when it comes to business in the state of Indiana, I can tell you that the plans that we have will shock you. When you don't say you're going to use millions of dollars from the government, it's amazing how much creativity and innovation is allowed. Do you understand what I mean by that? If you come from a perspective that's a politician, you're always going to see first all of the money, which is really all of the money as your solution before you look at a solution. I am the exact opposite. I stand here and look for a solution before I look back at the money. And because I can do that, the things that we can do in this state that they have missed, I promise you, when you hear our ideas, you're going to go, why didn't we do that before? Because it is easier to throw millions of dollars at something than it is to organize the private sector. It's just easier. We're not doing it the easy way. My role is to shrink government, and I am not playing around. People ask me how you're going to do that. I say, well, here's one way to start. COVID was based on essential workers only. Give me the list. Who are the essential workers in the government, and who are the non-essential workers in the government? Why do we need the non-essential workers? How well did the government function during COVID? Did any of you miss the government? So we are actually what we say. And we'd love to give you guys more information, but I owe it to my team. I didn't plan this meeting, and my team works really hard, and they don't get paid, okay? They're away from their families all the time, not like any of these other campaigns, that I promise. And so I'd be doing them a disservice if I rolled something out to you before we can roll it out, rag. So I'm gonna save a little bit of that. Yes?
Yeah, without getting too specific then, you mentioned that, oftentimes the money's present and then you try to figure out a solution. And I like your approach to that. But what's unfortunate is the federal government has gotten into the big habit of deficit spending and pushing this money out. The state can't really compete with the federal government on encouraging programs because the federal government is it hasn't improved with Republican Congresses either. I mean, this
know.
problem is getting worse and worse
It's true.
exponentially.
Yes.
And it's probably, many people think it's going to cause a problem with our currency or our whole monetary system
Sure.
very soon. How can a state compete against the federal government that can deficit spend and doing it to the degree that they are? And I say compete by encouraging an economy in a way that the people, the residents of that state would like.
Yeah.
And then just also briefly, some states have started bullion banks. I think Arkansas, I think Wyoming, and I think Texas. I'm not sure about all this, and there's been some talk about it in this state. Do you have any opinion on that as well?
Okay, so we can start with this. I don't know if you've seen the Love and Respect series for marriage. It's great. They talk about what's called the crazy cycle, right? The crazy cycle, according to scripture, it says that, wives respect your husbands, husbands love your wives. And so then they tell you in marriage that you kind of have this little crazy cycle going around where one stops, then the other stops, and the other stops, and it just goes like this. And then you've got these young couples that are pulling their hair out, like, what is going on in our marriage? And then you have this wonderful question of how do you solve that situation? Who gets out of the crazy cycle first? And me being naive, I raised my hand and said, well, I know what the answer is to that. It's got to be the man because he's always leading. No, the answer is actually the way to get out of the crazy cycle in marriage is that the more mature person steps out. Quite convicting. In government right now, we have what's called like a crazy cycle, where we've got government that's pushing down on the middle class, our small businesses, they're taxing them, and that's dropping down. Those costs are being passed on then to a class of, and we're talking class, not character, then to like a lower class, and it just keeps pushing down. And what it's doing is it's driving a very real poverty rate. And I'm telling you, in the state of Indiana, that is real. I am on the ground and I see people. I talk to moms. One of the things that you'll see is very, very common is how many grandparents are taking care of their children, their grandchildren now, so that parents can go to work. Or parents that are just becoming so depressed by what's going on in society, they're turning to other things. We've talked about that. It's true that we have an issue with our children and the departments that are running our children's services right now. I've heard them described as basically putting duct tape on a system that's very broken, and the people that are suffering from that are the children. But when it comes to government and how we are going to come out of the cycle that we're in, I start here. If all the pressure is being pushed down and poverty is starting to drive itself downward, do you know who stands right here to say, I have the solution for all the poverty? Who is that? That big door is who? That's the government. And they open up that door real wide and they say, hey, come on in, no problem, we'll take care of you. And so then what does that do? It causes what? More expense. And then that does what? Pushes down on the middle class, and we are in what? The crazy cycle. So you ask, what is the solution for that? And I tell you, I've spent the last 2 years speaking with many pastors because I happen to believe that the person that stands in front of that door is the church. You see, you can't say, let's just get rid of all the federal programs, right? You can't say that. You want to know why? Because there's thousands of people that depend on them. Thousands. And here's another thing. I didn't realize until running for office that welfare can be generational. In this sense, that people that are on welfare, when they turn 18 years old, can get enrolled in welfare without even enrolling in welfare. Yeah, I said that right. People can be enrolled in welfare without actually enrolling themselves. They'll do that. And so sometimes we're criticizing kids that aren't out getting jobs. Would you get a job if people were handing you a check? That stuff happens. It's real. And so what I've done is I've gone to the pastors and I've said to them, hey, we plan on shrinking government, so we'd like you, the church, to stand right here. Because there's gonna be a lot of people that have need. And we need to make sure that there's someone there that's gonna meet that need. And I'm very happy to tell you that there are many churches in the state of Indiana that are already moving in that direction. They don't know that they're doing this all over the state. They're just doing it individually. They're starting to do meals weekly. They're starting to provide for families. So that's part of the solution. The other part of the solution is that we have to look at the budget. We have to take the things out that aren't needed. And that's gonna require an audit. I can't tell you how that audit's gonna go because the government isn't super excited and desiring to show us everything that they're spending money on. So we have to work really hard to get all that information. But Craig's job as the lieutenant governor is to work in all of those departments and look for the very essential things that need to take place, and the things that don't, we're just gonna give him a little time out. And everybody thinks that I'm kidding, but I'm sitting here saying to you, whenever somebody needs to go on a diet, who raises their hand and says me first? No one. And how many of you, when you go on a diet, are really excited the first couple of months? None of you. Right? You don't even kind of want to be around some people when they go on a diet because we get grumpy, do we not? And so it's a delicate line that I have to walk here. But I believe the state of Indiana is well positioned for that. Do you want to know why? Because we're unlike other states. In our state, what is very special about us is a lot of the families have stayed here for generations. In fact, on this trip, on this journey, I found out that my husband's family were original settlers in the state of Indiana. We have a cemetery up north, the Rittenhour Cemetery. It's amazing. And our whole family did not know how great and big it was. There are generations of families in this state. They can handle it. They're hardworking. And so we can actually put the government on a diet and we can still function appropriately. COVID should show you that, really, when you think about it. So I kind of hem-hawed on the answer. I did it on purpose. I'm sorry. I love some of our people here, but there's other candidates that are here, and I just want to give my team a chance to roll everything out. And so I apologize for that because I know you guys are almost like Bereans of the Constitution. Can I say that? Bereans are in Corinthians, right? But I appreciate that you guys know what you're talking about. And so I want to encourage you to look at our website. I want to encourage you to take our pictures. Love to have you sign. One thing I can tell you is it's going to be a spirited debate, that's for sure. I've already debated with Mike Braun, and Curtis Hill wasn't there. We didn't debate for that one. Suzanne was there. I don't know if you can call it a debate because we didn't go like at each other. I don't know if that's really what we do. But it will be an honest conversation.
Is that L-Live?
Do we have it?
That one was not, but the future ones will be televised, yes.
I don't know if we'll release that footage or not. You guys would probably like that. Yeah, I'm a mom, so I just kind of call it like it is, and I don't do fancy talk, and it's hard. You guys were, now I'm really talking. Like, am I on? I'm on, great. I'm just like this, though. Seriously. The problem they have in Indiana is the people that are in charge are conservatives. And so when you go to a debate, how do you say you're going to change things when you've been the ones in charge?
Amen.
So let's just say that when I'm up there, it's not the same per se, because everybody wants to so-called play nice. This isn't about playing nice or mean or anything like that. This is about being truthful and honest. This is about decisions that are made that affect our families. This is about a nation that's in a moral crisis. This is about a government that's too big. This is about people that actually want to change that. And so I would just exhort you to be very careful who you vote for. If you see in that person a person that loves money, that loves power, you probably should say no. Just something to think about. I appreciate your time. You guys have been so attentive, and it's late. So thank you guys for that. I appreciate you. Thank you.